This is Turbine. This is 2 Fort. And this is Well. By me. I made these. And it's about time to talk about it. Around 2017, between Meet Your Match and Jungle Inferno, there was a lull of TF2 content. I know there's almost nothing for TF2 updates nowadays, but back then this was the first big break between updates. During this break, a map came out called Orange 50F Tower by Injux, maybe. They appear to have deleted their Steam account, so we will never know their purpose of making this map. Let's have a look at it. Starting from the spawn, we're greeted by the Katowski, I think that's how you say it, Katowski kick music and 2 teleporters. One for a booster and a random teleporter. Outside we see the booster and whoa, that is tall. There's a train moving around and a dancing spy. Both will kill you violently if touched. Now let's take a look at this random teleporter. It is indeed random and may place you in several different locations. Most of the time it spawned me in this pit that drops me into this room.
I need some help! Conga, you fools! Love it!
As expected, everything is mirrored on the blue side, including a sentry that guards the spawn. Now it's time to conquer the tower. I took the booster pad to skip a few floors, but was devoured by a little choo-choo. He goes up and down the tower. Well, anyway, on my second attempt, I climbed for what seemed like hours up the side of the tower. Every now and then there's a capture point on the way up. I climbed and climbed, being greatly annoyed by the out-of-line texture on this path. With a flashback to that weird Minecraft version of Orange I looked at years ago with the 2 suns. Why does that still annoy me so much? But I kept climbing still, risking a peek over the edge at times, till I finally reached the top. Up here there's a few things you can do. Standing on the capture point will make you tiny. Hitting these buttons will play some rather nostalgic TF2 theme songs. First we have Live FK, Give Me, otherwise known as that song that plays on Wacky Races. erecting a river,
You and me, hoss. Sentry, go, damn it, cut the blue that gear. This thing ain't on autopilot, damn it.
and surprise butt sex. A classic. Finally, you know how to fall from the top. It's the only option going forward. And that's pretty much everything to this map. A simple concept, but it works really well. I like how you climb to the top is actually rewarded. Oh, I forgot to mention the pumpkin bombs. Turbine. That's turbine with 17 R's, which I'll now call long turbine from this point forward. Was made after I saw a Cerny video on Orange 50F. And I saw a comment asking to put 50 vents in turbine. I mistook vents for turbines, and that's probably one of the better mistakes in my life. TF2 Maps holds an April Fool's map event every, well, April 1st. Long Turbine was going to be a submission to that year's contest, but I believe there was a no map edit clause that I didn't notice until I got up to submissions, so instead I uploaded it a few days before April 1st to let it gain traction. This was made during a period of my life where I was kind of between finishing education and job searching. When I wasn't applying for jobs, I had a fair bit of free time and decided to take up source engine mapping, something I haven't really touched since I was in high school and only had just begun again in my spare time since last year, making Cough Conveyor for our previous year's April Fool's contest. I ended up using 51 turbines because it fit better when I copy-pasted the middle of the map. The first version had a fog effect I forgot to remove, and the second version only had a HDR render, meaning players using LDR got a full bright map. Version 3 fixed these issues and is the final version. My favourite part of Long Turbine is how normal the spawn looks. You don't expect anything, but the moment you step outside it hits you. Long Turbine. Oh. I've had several people say the length actually improves Turbine's gameplay, and I can totally see that. Maybe if Turbine was stretched out a bit, not this long, but maybe by 6 or so turbines, I think it would have more breathing room for gameplay and it would improve greatly. The only things I could possibly think of adding or changing is adding more alcoves with alcoves, is that the word? Alcoves with health and ammo along the route. Possibly changing the font of the halfway sign from Windows stock stencil font to something a bit more fitting for TF2. Well, I'm close to the end, so I'm going to walk on the other side of the red containers for a bit now. It's worth pointing out this map is longer than the sniper rifle's range. Yeah, rockets, and I assume arrows and bolts can make it all the way across the map just fine. Looking in retrospect, I'm still pretty happy with Long Turbine. It was pretty much a copy-paste job, but it was fun to pull apart a map to see how it works as well. After Long Turbine, there was only one map that could be made next. After many requests, I made 2 Fort, which will now be called Long 2 Fort, roughly a week and a half later. It was quite a tricky map to make. Stretching out 2 Fort's terrain is a lot harder than Turbine because it's a more detailed, condensed map compared to Turbine's neat blockiness that could be broken up very easily. I think the part I struggled with the most was the terrain outside of the map, especially where it connects to the skybox. I ended up cheesing it by making it look like a small hill to cover up the seam. I lost count, but from memory the bridge is roughly 25.5 normal 2 Fort bridges in length. This resulted in the middle being open. The first version had no way to get back on the bridge if it fell off, so I changed the middle to make this possible with a few ramps. Someone suggested adding some jump pads, so I did that to a later version as well. Just like Long Turbine, I love how the start of this map is normal until you hit the balcony. I really like these jump pads. They add a lot to the map that would otherwise become dull after the initial shock of seeing it. Walking across, I can see some of the shortcuts I took while making the map. I couldn't get the terrain to line up with the skybox, so I just raised it above where it would line up. I didn't do the best job of it, however. The middle came out okay. When this map was in rotation in a lot of servers, it's where players would normally meet up. Makes me wish I added something more interesting in the middle to reward players. I tried to do some fun stuff with cows along the outside, but you could tell I got lazy. I still like the cow cult over here though. If you hold down spacebar when you hit the water after touching the jump pads, you'll skip along for quite a while. I later turned this into a concept for a map but didn't develop it further. Long 2 Fort was a mess to make and is still a messy map. I no longer have the original map file, so I can't really be bothered to decompile the map and fix anything. It's not really worth it. Between Long Turbine and Long 2 Fort, the first of quite a lot of copycat maps were made. Item Test by Goem was probably not the map you and I was expecting to be made first to follow up, but as far as I can tell, it was. They were also the creator of Buy Tower. Fun fact. A bit later, a map that would surpass the previous long maps in popularity by far was released. PLR Higher Tower by Amy. I gotta check names more often. I was gonna make a long high tower myself, but they beat me to the punch. Was I a bit salty? I guess I was. But it also made me realize that verticality seemed to be a lot more fun than horizontality? Long Turbine and 2 Fort were kinda doomed in a sense. It's much more fun going up and down than it is to go forwards and backwards. So as I walk out, I can see, yeah, a very high tower. let's start riding this cart. Actually, since the Rancho taunt doesn't work on a moving cart, I know the perfect class and taunt to ride this with. Well, this is not how I intended this to go, but I guess we'll have to live with it. You know, the funny thing is, I find games on higher tower tend to be a lot more shorter than normal high tower, because once you get high enough, no one can reach you normally. You might get a few trolls trying to stomp you, but it's normally a clean run with the pub crowd. I'm timing this as I move up, already at the 4-minute mark at roughly halfway. Good view from here. We're at 6 minutes now and still going. Nine minutes and closing in. 12 minutes we get the payload warning. Finally. That took a little over 13 minutes to reach the top. I remember when this map was popular, it was very common to have a collection of sprays at the top. There was a lot of discussion about social spaces in games a few years ago, and I think that's partly why these long maps became so popular. It's something unique to Source Engine games, and even TF2 that you rarely see outside of it. Also, that HUD is terrifying. The cart seems to move down so slowly, but it's actually moving quite fast. And finally, here's the top. You know I gotta jump down.
Ah! Help! Incoming! Ah! Thanks, mate.
At this point, it became a fad. The workshop became flooded with long map clones. I had helped create a monster. Everyone wanted to get in on the long map craze and get their map played by a big TF2 YouTuber. Some of these were kinda cool and clever, so let's take a look at some of them. First up is Frontier, with 50 trailers for the cart. Sadly, you can only push the cart on the first one. It takes going past 3 points until you can see the entire length of the train. In fact, the train is so long, the cart will start rolling back before you even reach the end of the trail. The lighting on the carts is almost full bright. Not really sure how you could fix it. At the end, all of the carts just kinda no-clip into each other. Doomsday is Doomsday with a much taller lift. Sadly, it suffers from Terminal still being Doomsday. Watchtower is a bit more interesting, being an arena map with the cap zone so high up you can make camping a bit of a problem. You know, a common complaint with Watchtower is the actual Watchtower has no purpose being in a pit where it can't see anything. This version definitely fixes that problem. One significant edit I remember seeing around this time is 2 Fort with a twist by Blade 64X. I did ask them if they were inspired by the long maps around this time, but it was more likely Badlands or Ravine Tilted, where the influence came from. The floor of the bridge is made from a displacement, but apparently the rest is brushes, which seems insane to me. I could keep going with all these different map edits, but we are well past where we started now with the long map edits. The point is, it was a meme at this point, and when something becomes a meme, a lot of people want in, whether they have the talent to do so or not. I know at the time there was a few people in certain tier 2 communities that were not very happy with me, and honestly I can't blame them. Remember, this was right before Jungle Inferno, and quite a few creators were hoping to get their work in. An actual get added to the game candidate map can take months or even years to work on. Getting your passion project knocked off the front page by Steel, but I added more control points, and the pit around E is 50 times longer, also higher towers copy pasted in for some reason, is beyond irritating. Despite this, I decided to make one more longer map, and probably the one I like the most. King of the Hill Well, or Long Well, was the last long map I made. I made it a cough map despite, well, not having a King of the Hill version, because this map is so stupidly close to the Source Engine's entity limit, this was the only way to make the map work. It's also why each train can only run in one direction. You could probably crash this map if everyone went Demoman and used the Scottish Resistance. Keeping in mind what I learnt from Higher Tower's popularity, I decided to make moving on a flat surface interesting by, well, adding a crap ton of trains to dodge. There's 51 in total. I'm sure if I still had the original files, I could use my greater experience to optimize the map and make the trains move both directions, but that's way too much effort. After release, the map Train Grid was brought up a few times, which has a similar premise, just with less train. There's not much to say about Long Well. It's a lot of trains and that's about it. I put in a few nods to Train God in the middle of the map. Gotta pay your respects. After this, I dropped the whole long map gimmick. I didn't want to become the long map guy. At one point I did try and make a long double cross, but it was too complex and didn't work properly. Just before I stop it, I did make some arena versions of all the maps and only uploaded them to Game Banana. I thought that might be interesting for something like Gun Game or Versus Hail. I've never seen them used, however. Funny thing is, watching all these YouTubers get famous off playing my maps did give me a tinge of jealousy. I know it's such a silly thing to get jealous about, but I felt I hardly got any attention for my creations. I made videos about them too, but almost got no views. And I know it's all about gaming the algorithm, but it really annoyed me to see these people stare at a map for 30 seconds and go, "Whoa, look how wacky this map is!" Then jump to another map without even dropping a name or a download link. It almost felt disrespectful to the creators of the map and the map itself. Around this time, I was exploring the map Achievement Turbo and wasn't able to work out how to activate all the Easter eggs in the map. Partly out of frustration, and partly because I couldn't find a source with all the information in one place, I made a video looking at Achievement Turbo V14, explaining how to activate and navigate its many secrets. But I did it slowly, carefully, and respectfully. A lot of people seemed to like it, so I made another video about a map, and another, and another. Eventually I started calling this series of videos Weird Maps. Funny how things work out sometimes. I span out a bit now to Gary's Mod, then a few other Source and Valve related maps, and we're here today. Nowadays it seems when I get recognized it's not for the long maps, it's normally for the other videos I make. So if you didn't know I was partly responsible for these maps, there you go. I was. I'm sorry. This isn't the complete end of the story for Long Turbine, however. When Funk Rotating was fixed, I made a version of Long Turbine appropriately called Turbine for funsies, making all the turbines spin. And yes, I know that's not how these turbines spin, just shut up. And I thought that would be the end of any long map edits for me. Then as part of a Tier 2 Maps micro contest, I made a Pro version last year. adding a bunch of random fun stuff like jump pads, a train, and lava, just to name a few. So that's the story of Turbine 2 Ford, and well, it's a weird part of my history on the internet. It's kind of crazy to think, as of this video, it's almost been 7 years since I made them. And partly due to them, it's how I've ended up here. Oh no, the sun is leaking. The sun is leaking.